This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Roerick. Episode 102, recorded April 6th, 2017. Welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I am your host and the editor-in-chief here at TV Enthusiast. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host on The Weekly Set, William Roerick.
Hello.
Today, we are going to be talking about The Magicians, and we are going to be talking about Legion, one episode of each, as opposed to last week when we did two of each. So, The Magicians, we're talking about Season 2, Episode 11, The Rattening. First off, let's talk about the storyline that the title comes from.
Your eyes.
Let's talk about where the title comes from. The actual the storyline related to that, which is Elliot and Margot are in the castle. They get visited by Floria, and Elliot wanted to plan out all these festivities to kind of celebrate it, but they end up kind of going off to be private, and they can't mess with each other. It's like, the magical rules in Fillory. But kind of exploring each other anyways is this way of hiding, like getting to know each other or something sexually without actually touching each other.
Right.
And during the process of this, at one point, Elliot is blindfolded, and all of a sudden the king's not talking to him anymore, and he takes off the blindfold, and there's a heap of the king's clothing, and out of it comes a rat.
Yeah.
So apparently this happened all over the kingdom, where a bunch of things were turned to rats, including the sloth advisor that's all evil.
Oh yeah.
Also got turned into a rat.
Damn.
And the king's wife abducted during this time as well by the fairies. Margot talks to the fairies, the representative of the fairies, and it's like, what the fuck is this? And the fairy says that their only responsibility, the only thing they had anything to do with was the king's wife. Everything else, and basically gave a vague hint at some malevolent force that has no political motivation, that just is doing something because it can.
Right. So
which isn't explained.
No,
I'm guessing maybe Umber, because there's been kind of hints towards him being a little bit less.
He hasn't been mentioned in a while, has he?
Yeah, they haven't mentioned him in a while, but the last time we saw him, he seemed to be a little bit less good than we'd been led to believe. I think maybe this is connected to Umber. I don't know. It could be something else. But basically, nothing was really revealed where this came from. In order to kind of figure out the problem, Elliot figures out that the only people that could have really influenced to do this as a targeted attack would be one of the members of his own councils. So he roofies them all. Right. And through that ends up finding out, a few little things about indiscretions of his cabinet, but nothing major. Margot ends up finally revealing to him the deal she made with the fairies. It's her put away in the dungeon, but kind of in a kind way, not completely argumentative. He has her, is demanding she be treated well, and that she's given her oil or coconut oil or whatever. And basically showing that he doesn't know what to do, and he's confused over the situation, and he can't just have her causing more problems. He ends up having a conversation with his cook.
Oh, Elliot.
That he brought.
Elliot is overwhelmed at this point. Elliot put Margot in the dungeon, and now he's trying to do everything by himself, and he is overwhelmed.
He's talking to his cook, who's also from Earth.
Yeah.
And about what he can do, and the cook says, put off some of the stuff to your governors and to your people, and Elliot's like, I don't have any, and he's like, well, if you get them, then you can put it off, and he's like, oh, but then I have to choose them. It's more work for me to do.
Yeah.
The cook says, or you could just have, the people from the different regions vote for them, people in their place. And Elliot's like, oh my God, you've done it. You figured out how to bring democracy to Fillory. Awesome. And then immediately is teleported out of Fillory.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Margot in the dungeons is visited by the spouse, I guess, of the sloth, the evil sloth.
Yeah, I guess. didn't realize like he was a lost spouse until like he said it in this episode.
We thought it was just like a translator or something.
Yeah, I thought it was just no, they were romantically linked. That's weird. Okay.
Fillory, because remember, like before before they'd gone to Fillory in the first season, they encountered some people they talked to the one guy that had been there before, and he was talking about how they went to Fillory to party. They were just like having orgies with like centaurs and stuff. So we kind of heard this like liberal animal-human relations kind of stuff going on before, and it just we'd forgotten about it. I think about the kind of raunchy side of Fillory. But anyways, this guy gives Margot a potion to have her visit the fairy realm so she can try to figure out this situation and how to restore everybody and figure out what's going on with that. And so she takes it and promptly disappears.
Right.
That storyline in the episode, the Fillory story. But Fillory continues to be kind of like entertaining and funny.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely the lightest storyline in this season.
So besides that, we have visiting the library again. He's trying to through his conversations with his girlfriend. I can't even remember her name right now. Katie, right?
Yeah, Katie. Yes.
Katie, thinks, well, if she knows how to get into the poison room, and the poison room is super important, then it would be in her book. And Penny's like, oh, that's right. Everybody has a book. So he doesn't even know her name though. So he's trying to get this information with like a supervisor who's like this little like a a young teen girl is like his supervisor.
Yeah, he's like is this my like he thought she was like going to be like he was going to be supervised. He's like, am I supposed to be supervising her? And he's like, no, she's your supervisor. And he's like,
she seems to be there in order to keep her safe because I guess her father's part of like a magical mafia.
Right.
They make that her father's a businessman and that there's like magical interest against him, and that puts her in danger. So she's being held in the library in order to protect her. Anyways, she ends up giving Penny her name, telling her name basically by she'd been stealing the woman's lunch. It was in a paper bag with her name on it, and so gives her the bag to find it. Penny goes to try to find her name to find her book, and it's gone. It's been moved to the poison room. So basically their way of finding the poison room is now in the poison room.
Yeah. She thought of everything.
So Katie and Penny are a little bit annoyed and trying to deal with that. And then you find out that the supervisor was spying on them. They were in private. She was hoping to catch them having sex or something, she said.
Right.
Bored of waiting, and ends up basically saying that she was trying to get into the poison room too, and that they could work together.
Right.
That's kind of the new direction for Penny's storyline. Now he's in the library. He's going to be teaming up with this young teenage girl, young Willow, based on his misremembering of the Sopranos and the character of Meadow.
Calling her Willow, trying to refer to her as Meadow, but he forgot the girl's name on the screen, apparently, so he calls her Willow.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what's been happening with Penny's side of the story now, where he's moving forward. Only got 2 more episodes in the season, so
yeah, I can't.
We'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Then we have, I guess, our main storyline with Quentin and Julia, and they're going to the underworld.
Well, so first they go and they see the ancient one.
Well, yeah. Well, hold up. They're going to the underworld so Julia can get her shade back, which is trapped in the underworld. But they need a way to get to the underworld, and they find out, like at the end of the last episode, they find out that you can get to the underworld through an ancient one, which is basically a dragon. So they have to find the ancient one first. They find the ancient one's, I guess you could say, lair. It's a sewer. It's
like in a sewer.
It's a sewer. It needs a baby tube, though, to access it. Quentin realizes he still has a baby tube. And Julia,
she pulls it out like immediately without even giving him a chance.
Yeah, without even
oh, okay, snap, and then oh, sorry.
Yeah.
It's really action. They talk to the dragon. The dragon, for payment, payment, wants the button that gets them to Fillory.
Yeah.
Hard decision for Quentin because that blocks him off from being able to easily make it back and forth to Fillory. Of course, he could probably just travel there with Penny.
But he doesn't put up much of a fight or resistance. He just gives up the button.
Yeah, he just thinks it's important enough that he can. There are other ways to get to Fillory.
Right, exactly.
But to get to the underworld, he needs to do this, so he just kind of accepts it. He gives up the button. I love the kind of the sense of humor of the dragon. Dragon is talking to them and it's like, you have an hour to get back in your bodies, and then it's after the hour, and the dragon's like, well, I sit patiently and wait, and they're like, really? And no, I'm gonna eat you. I'm a fucking dragon.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I'm a fucking dragon. I like this. And
after she sends their consciousness away, yeah, she's all like millennial. Which is really funny.
It was really funny. Yeah, that dragon was hilarious.
So they end up, they're now in the underworld. It's like a waiting room.
Yeah,
and
the underworld is like this really bureaucratic.
It kind of reminds me of like a more modern version of the underworld in Beetlejuice.
It reminds me of it's exactly like Beetlejuice. They just stole that joke.
Yeah. No. Even like the pamphlet kind of reminded me of the book from Beetlejuice.
So you're probably not going to hell.
Yeah. So they find out, if you're missing your shade, you should contact the bellhop. They're about to do that, and then somebody else, there's a shade alert called on one of the other people, and they haul him away and drag him away, kicking and screaming. They're like, okay, I guess we're not going to say that.
Yeah.
The waiting room says, do you like skiing? We'll put you there while you're waiting, or whatever, And Julia ends up saying, actually, can you look up some names? Basically like in a purgatory, like a waiting place before they can move on. And realizing that this process takes time, she knows that her friends that were in her magic group that summoned Renard by accident,
right,
they're likely still there. So uses their names to find them, finds them in the bowling alley, including the body that Renard is currently using. Walk around. Julia has kind of like a weird re-encounter with him because of that, because she knows his face now, thinks of him as Renard, the guy who raped her, actual original soul of the body that's now dead.
Right.
And all the other people, they're in a bowling alley. Quentin's apparently scared of bowling alleys.
I guess.
And a bad experience. But he's getting over that because apparently you always get strikes when you first get there.
Yeah.
And so he thinks he's doing good, but it's just it always happens there. Bring out that they're going to use these people in order to find a way to get to where the souls are. So the guy that Renard is currently inhabiting the body of, his soul, the front desk people, Quentin and where the shades are, where the shades are taken in the underworld. So they end up finding it. It's actually like a village of people with shades performing small miracles.
Right.
Or bloom in the room of a dying girl, small miracles like that. And the orphanage is basically run by the goddess that Julia was trying to summon when she accidentally summoned Renard.
Right.
So, so Julia's kind of pissed off that this person's AWOL and doesn't seem to care. Upstairs, they end up, one of the boys in the orphanage, this boy Shades in the orphanage, helps them find Julia's shade. But in doing so, they also discover Alice's shade, because Alice becoming a Niflin shade.
Yeah.
So they discover Alice's shade. Quentin has kind of he has an encounter with her. He's able to talk to her and get a little
down. He gets really emotional.
It's his second experience of closure after the first one he had in last week's episode when they did that spell.
Universe Alex.
Yeah.
There's
a chance for him to actually talk to the real Alice. They find Julia's shade as well. They're going to kind of leave there with Julia's shade, but they can only apparently leave with one. They don't really explain why they can only leave with one, but Julia ends up kind of surprising Quentin by, instead of taking her own shade, taking Alice's.
Right.
Quentin has a means of bringing Alice back. So Julia, somehow shadeless Julia does something noble. We don't really understand sort of that thinking, if it was talking to her shade, that they came up with that together, or what happened. But she made a noble move in order to do the death of Alice, which was basically her fault.
Right.
So now Quentin and Julia escape along with Alice's shade, or presumably back in the real world. They just kind of cut off at that point where we know that they're going back to them. Thing that happened kind of in this episode ties a little bit into like Penny and Katie's storyline, and that involved Reynard and his son, the congressman, trying to learn how to use his abilities of persuasion, and figuring out that basically every time he had a heart-to-heart with his wife and asked for that he needed her support there, like every instance like that, he was controlling her without realizing.
Right.
In existential crisis now, because he's like, this is my whole marriage has been this lie. I've been controlling her against her will and didn't even know it. That Reynard, not having like no humanity at all, doesn't know how to communicate with him about it. But the one thing we get that kind of connects a little bit to Katie's and also to Julia's is that we find out that he was apparently, I guess, romantically linked to the goddess that he impersonated the world and caused all his mayhem that he caused.
Right.
This goddess like runes and crushes gods and men beneath her feet or something. And
he basically has a major grudge against this god, to the point where his son asks him, like, are you in love with this goddess?
He's able to put it together that like his pops was scorned by this goddess.
Yeah. Like, this is like a personal vendetta,
I'm smelling season 3 has to do with this goddess. We're close to the end of season 2. I doubt they're going to bring the goddess in and resolve everything in this season. So I think this goddess is going to end up coming into play in season 3.
Oh yeah, they're building up season 3. I like how they do this. They like subtly introduce the big bad or the major bad for next season towards the end of the previous season. They did that last season with Reynard, introducing him right at the end and making him the motivation for Julia, and now they're doing it with the goddess at the end of this season. At least that's what I think they're doing, unless there's some kind of swerve.
I think we're gonna end up seeing a lot having to do with different gods and goddesses in the next season.
I think so too.
We have the kind of weirdness that was brought on with Umber. We haven't seen him in a while, but the last time we saw him, he just kind of seemed to be acting a little bit off. He ended up deporting Elliot after Elliot brought democracy, or he presumably exiled Elliot from Fillory when he started bringing democracy to there. So him, and he's a god. And then you have this, whatever this force is, if it's related to the fairies or to Umber or to something else, that is creating all the problems in Fillory that Elliot was having before. I think it's going to be like a heavy god season next.
Right.
I think this is what they're setting up.
I think you're right. I think they're setting up. Yeah, they're setting it up for like to be a lot of God.
But Reynard's son,
they're actually setting this up to become American God. Which is
Renard's son basically comes to Katie at break bills and says that, are you still going up against my father? He's like, I'm in. He wants to take out his father now because he's had this crisis and he's like now kind of like fighting for his own humanity, basically.
Yeah.
He's like, his father is like everything that's wrong with his life. And so now he's taken up position against him.
Yeah.
So yeah, the finale is probably going to be a big battle with Renard.
Yep, that's for sure. Can't wait for it. I hope it's just as brutal as the battle with the Beast at the end of the first season.
Yeah, that should be interesting. So that's The Magicians. Next up, we're going to be talking about Legion, season 1, episode 4. After this, that means, Will, you're now halfway through the series, or the season.
There's like only 8 episodes, right?
Yeah, there's 8 episodes. You're halfway through now.
Woo, halfway through.
maybe we should do it so that like 2 episodes for the next 2 weeks, and so we kind of wrap up Legion of Magicians at the same time.
Oh, that might work. Yeah, I can't do 2 episodes this week because just work. But next week should be normal, so yeah, I'll be fine.
We'll try to do 2 episodes of Legion next week and 2 episodes the week after that, and then we can start fresh on some new shows after those shows at the same time, basically.
Okay. The first half of this episode is kind of a blur. Let's see.
Again, you're going to have to guide me through this a little bit because I don't want to spoil things, but I do have some notes about some of the stuff that happened in this episode. I know that this is the episode where they're trying to track through some of David's memories, and they track down his old psychologist.
Yep, they track down. They're trying to track through his memories. They come to a conclusion that some of his memories that they were looking at are false because of the random hiccups and stuff that they encounter in his memory. They lead them to conclude that they must be false memories that they're looking at. And there's a lot of that. This is the episode in which Benicio del Toro's character first appears. I'm not sure what his character is supposed to be. If he was in guy. He was if he's in David's head or not, I couldn't tell. I really can't tell. But
what did you think of his character though? He's this beatnik in an ice cabin.
He's like in an ice cabin. He's like this beatnik. Interesting, different. He's trying to be philosophical, but it doesn't. Nothing he says seems to be particularly deep or enlightening. It just sounds like BS that sounds deep. You know what I mean? It kind of like, okay, yeah, you're just pulling this out of your ass, dude.
I love like how awkward he is because he's apparently like not had contact for so long.
Right.
He's like, you want me to put on some music? And he puts on some like really obnoxious like improvised jazz or something.
Yeah, he puts on some like really obnoxious. Yeah.
He's like,
that's cool. We go in depth and we learn more about some of the characters, like the one guy with the glasses and the Indian girl. Mm-hmm. We learn that they actually share the same body, which was interesting. I thought that's pretty neat.
It's actually very similar to, there was a character in the British series Misfits.
Oh, really?
Similar, where like he could have a part of himself separate, and they were the same person, but right, like with different personalities. Like one was like, one became like all id,
right?
Just like the id of the brain, and the other one was like all compassion, basically.
And that's what happened here too, because they separated. They separated, and she managed to go with the team with David's girlfriend and the other guy, the guy who can go into people's memories. They're searching for answers. They go to actually visit David's psychiatrist, who David actually didn't murder, because that was a false memory.
And he's living in a lighthouse.
It turns out
visuals.
Yeah, the visuals are just, of course, the visuals in this episode are amazing. This show is a nonstop visual assault. It is just great. Noah Hawley has a great eye for cinematography. It's one of the things his shows does best. Definitely a visual treat. If anything, Legion is. But they find out like it's not really his psychiatrist though. It's that evil organization.
It's the person masquerading as a psychologist is the guy with the weird eye.
The guy with the weird eye
and the weird hairdo.
Yeah, and the afro hairdo. They get caught. They realize it's a trap. They get defeated pretty handily. Except for David's girlfriend there. She uses the ace up her sleeve, which is she touches him and they switch bodies, and she uses that to escape capture. Mm-hmm. Or so she thought, because David, well, there's an interesting thing, because David encounters Lenny. We find out Lenny was actually Benny in real life. That Lenny with a guy named Benny. Although it's debatable whether Lenny was still real, like Lenny was the girl from the mental hospital or not. We don't know, but we do know that.
Yeah, there's a lot uncertain about that.
So we don't know if Lenny was actually real and from the mental hospital, but we do learn that the other instances in his memories of Lenny being a drug dealer and him getting high with Lenny and stuff outside of the mental institution, when we learned that was actually a guy named Benny. So that's another thing that happens. But inside David's head, it's Lenny, and Lenny seems to be another personality inside David's head. This one, Lenny is more deranged than David. She's clearly deranged. She's clearly insane. Her goal seems to be to influence David to go postal and use his abilities for no reason than to just cause chaos. Like she tries to show David these awful things that will set him off and get him to go. And I don't think it's necessarily to motivate him to do anything worthwhile. I think it's just to cause chaos.
Yeah.
She doesn't seem to have any noble intention. She seems to be an agent of chaos, to me at least.
David shows up and acting on everything that happened there, comes in like the hero and to save the day and shows off he's like what a badass he is with his abilities. But it's all a mistake because he's basically targeting Sid.
Yeah.
Rather than the eye or the guy with the creepy eye and hair,
Well, he doesn't know that
Sid's still in that shape, in that body.
Yes, Sid's still in that shape, in that body. I don't know if it wears off at the end or if David, through his powers, is able to see through the body switching and see who's really who. But after David basically lets the guy with the creepy eye as Sid run away, he looks down and he realizes that the man he thinks he has is actually Sid, and he just let the bad guy get away.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't know if it's because of her powers like wearing off, or if he could just sense it through the use of his power. If he could see right through it, if he just took the time, took a minute to actually look.
And then, as a result of that guy escaping, he ends up shooting Carrie, the
Carrie.
female part of the guy with the glasses, because they're both called Carrie.
What was really cool was when she was fighting those soldiers, and the guy with the glasses was there doing the moves himself, where he was at the same time. I thought that was a really cool scene. It sucked that they killed her off because I liked that character. I was like, gosh, but she was cool. Damn it, this sucks.
But yeah, I mean, like we've mentioned with Legion before, it's hard to describe in the way we would like the Magicians. Like it's hard to go like event. What this means.
You could say what's going on. In this, it's hard because you don't know what's going on in this show. Okay, like we have everything that we see. We have to have the caveat. If this is real, if this is what's actually happening, because any given event in it, you don't know if that's a thing that's happening. You don't know what swerves.
Yeah, he's an incredibly unreliable narrator.
Yeah, incredibly unreliable. You can't trust anything you're seeing. The entire premise of the show could be a lie. You don't know. I don't know if David has powers or if he even has a mutant. This show.
We've been watching Sesame Street.
Yeah, we're watching Sesame Street. You can't take anything for granted. Any piece of information you can't take it for granted. We just learned Lenny was alive in certain parts of the story. Maybe I don't, or maybe not. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, yes, this stuff can be massively confusing.
It is a great show, though. I just got a friend to watch the first episode.
It's so good, and it's confusing, but it for some reason
in a good way.
Yeah, I can't explain it, but it's not frustrating. It doesn't sit there and frustrate you. Just don't try. I guess as long as they don't try to overthink things. just
kind of go into an experience at all, because it's kind of like watching a David Lynch movie. Like, don't ask questions, just watch.
Yeah, don't ask questions of David Lynch movies, because I don't even know if David Lynch has answers half the time anyway. So
just go in and experience.
Yeah, just go in and
that's all you have to do.
Experience it. Just accept what the show's giving you. You know, just take it at face value.
Just take the ride, yeah.
And just go for the ride, because it's a pretty fun ride.
It's a crazy ride, goes all over the place, and like I said, I've seen the whole thing, so I'm trying to like avoid releasing spoilers on you. But I look forward to through more of the show. So next week we'll be talking about episodes 5 and 6, and then the week after that 7 and 8, as we also wrap up The Magician. So it'll be a fun last couple of weeks as these two end.
Yeah, then we're gonna figure out what then. Probably American Gods will be on by then.
American Gods, I think, is the 30th, so I don't think it'll be quite then, but we could probably do something.
We'll figure something out.
Gods would be the week after that. So
yeah.
So we'll figure out something for that 1 week between another show will be, and then we're assuredly going to be talking about American Gods. I'll say that promise is we'll talk about the first episode of American Gods.
Right.
Guarantee I'll give. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that as well. That brings an end to our regular show discussion. I'm going to wrap things up by just talking about what's coming up in the next week. Friday, April 7th, 2017, which will be today by the time this podcast is out. I'm recording it right now. For me, it is still Thursday. For Will, it is already Friday. But this won't be out until it's my time zone. The Get Down is back on Netflix. This is going to be finishing off its first season. I mentioned last week that they split the season for The Get Down just because they couldn't finish production in time. And rather than delaying the release of the whole thing, they just released the first half of the season.
Right.
The rest of the season hits on Friday. Then on Saturday, April 8th, on AMC, there's a new series called The Sun. It's a Western. It stars Pierce Brosnan of James Bond fame. Looks pretty good. I mean, it's a Western on AMC, so if you're not into Westerns or AMC, you're not going to have much to be excited for, but that's The Sun.
Yes, yep.
April 9th, 2017, Chris Hardwick, host of the Talking Dead and At Midnight. His Talking Dead show is basically going to be the Talking Dead for non-Walking Dead.
Okay, makes sense.
Seems to be like a similar set, and he's just going to have celebrity guests on, and it's just like a late night talk show. Then on Monday, April 10th, Better Call Saul comes back for its third season. Gus Fring's going to be showing up in this season. I'm really excited. And Angie Tribeca comes back to TBS. On Tuesday, April 11th, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is back on Fox. 14th will be like a day that Will is celebrating like no other, as Mystery Science Theater 3000 makes its way back to Netflix.
Woo!
Amazon. So
Woo!
between those two, Will, super excited.
Yes. Woo!
So MST3K fans, next Friday is going to be for you guys. But that's it for the podcast. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will on Twitter. He is at Foxhole Hero. You can check out our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com, which has links to all of those other sites and channels and such. You can subscribe to our podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. So if you listen to podcasts, normal means you have to listen to those podcasts and look up TV Enthusiast and you'll find us. The entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. Our regular audio stream, which is what will show up in a regular podcast client, only has has a 3-hour limit. So it's usually the last 2 to 3 episodes done. So if you go there, you'll only get the 3 most recent episodes. But if you want to go back and listen to episode 1 of our podcast, you can check out our YouTube YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel also has our discussion of the last season of Hannibal, our discussions of the last two most recent seasons of Game of Thrones, which we did. We used to do a show called TVE versus Marvel and DC, where we talk about the Marvel and DC shows and stuff. So if you want to listen to some of that old stuff, you can go back and hear that. And if you want to watch like Hannibal, if you haven't watched Hannibal yet, watch Hannibal, and then when you get to the last season, watch an episode, then watch our reaction to it, and you can watch along with us, even though we already seen it long ago.
Even though that was ages ago. What were you doing?
Not watching Hannibal. That's what. Yeah. They weren't watching Hannibal. So if you want to do that, it's a good opportunity, because on April 30th, Odd starts, which is the new Brian Fuller show. So get yourself psyched up by watching Hannibal, which is just an amazing, amazing TV show. And then American Gods looks equally as good. You can watch that, and we'll be discussing that on the podcast when that comes on. So until next time, thank you everybody for listening.
Good night.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage